Why does it seem like some people live under a cloud of bad luck while others stumble into fortune as if the universe is on their side? One person misses the bus, drops their coffee and gets caught in the rain all before lunch. Another buys a random lottery ticket and wins big. From the outside it looks like life is playing favorites. But is luck really some mysterious force, or is it just math in disguise? Hello, my name is Lilith, and today let's try to understand, luck. Across cultures, luck has been portrayed in numerous ways. The ancient Romans carried charms called tetra hospitalis, tokens of friendship and fortune. The Chinese still associate the number 8 with prosperity, while the number 4 is avoided because the pronunciation resembles the word for death. In Ireland, the 4-leaf clover became a symbol of rare fortune, and so on. The truth is, what we call luck often comes down to probability, the cold, impartial rule of chance, and the way our minds interpret patterns. We don't experience randomness as raw math. We filter it through stories, emotions, and beliefs. That's why luck feels so personal, almost as if the universe is conspiring for us or against us.
Good luck and bad luck aren't two separate forces. They're interpretations of the same neutral randomness. A blackjack player drawing a perfect 21 calls it luck, but the house, watching its profits shrink, calls the very same outcome bad luck. For the sailor who prayed to Poseidon, a sudden storm was the wrath of the gods. But for a farmer desperate for rain, it was salvation. Luck is not in the event itself, but in the perspective of the observer. This is Violet Jessup. She worked as a stewardess on the legendary Titanic. When the ship struck the iceberg and sank, she survived. But this wasn't her first. She had also been aboard the Olympic, the Titanic's sister ship, when it collided with a warship. Years later, she was on the Britannic, the third sister ship, when it struck a mine and went down in Aegean Sea. Once again, she survived.
Some call her the unluckiest woman in the world, cursed to face catastrophe over and over like a hell loop. Others call her the luckiest, surviving 3 of the deadliest shipwrecks in the history. Which is it? That depends entirely on how you frame it.
This duality points to a crucial truth. Luck is not a thing we can hold, measure, or bottle. It is an interpretation of chance, colored by perspective.
When good things happen against the odds, we say we're lucky. When bad things happen despite our efforts, we say we're unlucky. Both rely on human tendency to attach meaning to random events, to make sense of the chaos by telling a story.
The problem is our stories are biased. We remember the car accident on Friday the 13th, but we forget the countless Friday the 13ths when nothing happened. We carry a rabbit's foot or avoid walking under ladders, not because wood and ladders bend probability, but because rituals give us comfort against uncertainty. What we call luck is often nothing more than probability filtered through psychology.
And yet, luck feels real. It shapes choices, drives rituals, and even influences economies. So, what is luck? It's a paradox. A fiction that shapes reality, a story we tell ourselves about randomness that sometimes becomes powerful enough to alter the very outcome we're trying to explain. If luck is the story we tell about randomness, probability is the mathematics that sits quietly behind the curtain and pulling the strings. Where luck feels personal and mysterious, probability is impartial and ironically far more stranger than most people realize. Let's start simple. Heads or tails?
A fair coin has 2 sides, so the probability of landing on heads is 50%, the same for tails. But here's the strange part. In just a handful of flips, the result often don't look balanced. You might get 4 tails in a row. To someone who believes in luck, that might feel suspicious, like the coin is favoring tails.
But probability tells a different story. Streaks are not only possible, they're inevitable if the chance is allowed to play long enough. The same goes for dice. Roll a 6-sided die once, and your chance of hitting a 6 is 16.6%. 1 in 6.
Roll it 100 times and you might get long stretches without a 6 at all. Then suddenly several 6s in a row.
Our minds crave balance, but probability doesn't promise balance in the short term. It only evens out over the long haul. This gap between expectation and reality is why rare events seem so extraordinary. Take the lottery. The odds of winning major jackpot are astronomically small, in the range of hundreds of millions. Yet someone wins eventually.
When they do, it feels miraculous. We put their face on the news, hold up their oversized check, and marvel at their good fortune. In 1999, Bill Morgan's life took an extraordinary turn. After a car accident, his heart stopped for 14 minutes, and he lay in coma for 12 days. Against all odds, he woke up and made a full recovery. To celebrate his second chance at life, he bought a scratch-off ticket and won a brand new Toyota. When a news crew later asked him to recreate his winning moment for the cameras, he scratched another ticket live on air and won another jackpot.
I just won 250,000.
But mathematically, winning was never impossible. It was inevitable that someone would, given enough players and time. The miracle isn't that one person won, but that millions of participants convinced themselves it could be them. Probability doesn't just reveal how luck operates, it also shows how easily we misunderstand it. 3 famous misconceptions illustrate this perfectly.
First is a gambler's fallacy or Monte Carlo fallacy. Picture this: a roulette wheel lands on black 5 times in a row. Most people feel red is due. That's the gambler's fallacy, the belief that past outcomes shape future ones. In 1913, at the Monte Carlo casino, black came up 26 times in a row, a odds-defying streak of 1 in 68.4 million. Gamblers lost fortunes chasing red, convinced it had to appear.
Second comes the hot hand fallacy. This one pictures the opposite problem, the belief that success breeds success in random events. In basketball, for instance, when a player makes several shots in a row, fans often say he has a hot hand. While confidence can influence skill, the actual probability of making the next shot is usually no higher than before. What looks like a streak of luck is often just the natural clustering of random events.
And the last one, misjudging small probabilities. For example, the odds of being struck by lightning in a given year are roughly 1 in 1.2 million. That's tiny. Yet after hearing about a lightning strike on the news, some people suddenly fear it more than heart disease, which is orders of magnitude more likely.
Conversely, people underestimate small odds when they're appealing. That's why lotteries thrive. 1 in 300 million feels like it could be me. Probability, however, is merciless, so it almost certainly won't be.
All of this reveals a central irony. We're creatures of pattern, living in a universe of randomness. But understanding this doesn't make us immune to the feeling of luck. Even statisticians buy lottery tickets. Even scientists knock on wood. Because while probability explains the mechanism, luck explains the story. And we will always live by stories.
But if probability is neutral, why do some people swear the universe has it out for them? For us humans, mathematics isn't always the full answer. Psychology, on the other hand, has much more to tell, specifically about how our brains filter and interpret randomness.
Our perception isn't an objective recording of reality. It's a biased editing process, stitching moments into a story we can believe. When it comes to luck, 3 biases in particular shape that story: confirmation bias, negativity bias, and selective attention.
Confirmation bias makes us collect the evidence that fits our beliefs. If you think you're unlucky, every flat tire or missed call proves your point, while the uneventful days just disappear. Negativity bias makes bad moments hit harder than good ones, so a single setback can eclipse a dozen wins.
and selective attention narrows our focus to the rare disruptions, lost jobs, spilled coffees, while the quiet rhythm of everything going right slips by unnoticed.
Luck isn't always what happens to us. Often, it's how our minds choose to edit the film.
Statistically, streaks of bad events are not unusual at all. Tossing a coin 1,000 times, at some point, 7 or even 10 tails in a row will appear, but the coin has nothing to do with that. Similarly, losing a job, getting sick, having a fight with a friend, and missing the bus might cluster in the same month, not because fate is against you, but because in a large sample of days, improbable clusters are inevitable.
Yet to the person experiencing them, those clusters feel like destiny. We're quick to see patterns in chaos. This is a survival skill. If lightning strikes twice, we look for meaning. If misfortune piles up, we search for a curse. The irony is that people who call themselves unlucky often behave in ways that makes the story self-fulfilling. A person convinced of their bad luck might avoid risks, pass up opportunities, or retreat from chance encounters, all of which reduce the probability of good outcomes.
Meanwhile, someone who believes in their own good fortune tends to take more chances, opening more doors, and by sheer exposed to probability, they stumble into more lucky breaks. In other words, lucky isn't only in the math, it's in the mindset.
While we often credit or blame ourselves for every twist in the story, luck is usually sitting in the background nudging the plot forward. It might be one step away. Many successful people trace their rise back to a single lucky break, a chance meeting, a mentor encountered at the right time, an unexpected job opening.
The scientist Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin because he happened to leave a petri dish of bacteria uncovered, only to return and find mold had killed the colonies.
We can say that luck placed the mold spores in the air, but for sure only skill and experience allowed Fleming to recognize their importance.
The same could be said of countless innovators whose significant discoveries were less about fate and more about being in the right place at the right time.
But luck alone doesn't guarantee success. People who put themselves in motion, taking risks, trying new paths, expanding their networks, create more opportunities for luck to strike. Statistically, the more tickets you buy in life's lottery of encounters and experiences, the higher your chance of hitting something valuable. Its probability is boosted by exposure.
Even history's great figures acknowledge the power of luck. Napoleon Bonaparte famously said he preferred his generals to be lucky rather than merely skilled. He recognized that in the chaos of battle, even the best strategy could collapse if fortune tilted the wrong way.
In everyday life, luck operates like an invisible hand, guiding events we later rationalize as skill, merit, or destiny. But those who seem consistently lucky often share a common trait. They expose themselves to more rolls of the dice. They take risks, they interact, they venture into the uncertain. Probability rewards those who play, not those who stand still.
So luck in everyday life is not a mystical gift, but the sum of chance encounters, risks taken, and probabilities allowed to play themselves out. It can turn a coffee spill into a disaster, a chance meeting into a marriage, or a missed alarm into survival. The randomness is universal, but how we position ourselves in the path makes all the difference.
At this point, the question becomes unavoidable. Can luck be influenced, or is it nothing but blind chance? On one side stands probability, called an impartial, suggesting that luck is an illusion, a human label slapped onto random outcomes. On the other side stands lived experience, where some people seem to magnetize fortune, while others feel perpetually cursed. Reconciling these two perspectives takes us into philosophy and psychology.
From a strict mathematical standpoint, luck doesn't exist. Events unfold according to probabilities, and probability doesn't favor or punish. A coin flip remains 50-50, regardless of whether you call heads 10 times and lose each time. The coin doesn't remember. To the mathematician, luck is just a story we tell ourselves about randomness, nothing more.
But humans aren't dice. Unlike objects, we make choices, take risks, and change environments. We cannot control randomness itself, but we can control how often we expose ourselves to it and how we respond when it strikes. A person who takes 10 risks statistically will encounter more failure and more successes than someone who takes none.
That dual exposure makes them look unlucky on some days and lucky on others. But the truth is, they are simply increasing their sample size.
This creates a paradox. You cannot influence chance directly, but you can tilt the odds by shaping the situations you enter. In this sense, you don't control luck, but you can influence how much it has to work with.
Psychology also gives us tools for reinterpreting bad luck. When misfortune pile up, the instinct is to see a pattern, to imagine the universe sending a message. Probability says otherwise. Streaks happen naturally, and they're not about you.
Understanding this can soften the blow of unlucky runs. Instead of seeing them as curses, you can see them as part of the statistical texture of life. Expected, temporary, and impersonal.
A person convinced of their bad luck might stop trying altogether, retreating from opportunities. But someone who understands probability knows that streaks of failure don't predict the future. The next attempt is still governed by fresh odds, unaffected by the past.
That perspective keeps people in the game long enough for luck to swing their way again. In normal life, it gives a chance for opportunities. In gambling, it's the way of destruction. We can't bend randomness to our will, but we can change how often we give probability a chance to work in our favor. A missed bus, failed attempt, a string of rejections, these aren't the universe mocking you. They're simply outcomes in an endless sequence of possibilities. Once you see randomness as neutral, you free yourself from the weight of unlucky thinking. Stop taking chance personally. Luck is less about waiting for fortune to arrive and more about engineering the conditions where fortune has room to land. Your next lucky moment might be one choice away. We began with the question, why does it feel like some people are magnets for misfortune while others live under a lucky star? The truth is, luck is not a secret force. When you zoom out, every streak, every surprising consequence, every rare opportunity is just one point in the vast catapult of chance. Probability doesn't care who you are. It simply unfolds. Some call it fate, some call it bad timing, but the universe just calls it math. Luck isn't about waiting for fortune to knock. It's about opening doors to chance. This week, try one new thing. A risk, a connection, a dream. Your next lucky break might be one choice away. Thank you for your time. See you in the next video. And good luck.